going to be thinking about our whole and breaking up our whole into parts. So you have 4 pieces of paper. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you have yours laid out next to you as best you can on your desk. So the very first strip is going to be your one whole. This is your whole part for the all of the strips. So you're going to take your pencil and you're going to label it 1. Your next paper is going to be folded into halves. So pause the video right now and see if you can, on your own, fold it into halves and then label it. If you pause the video, you did your work, your answer should look like this. I want you to start to think, what do you notice about the parts? What do you notice about the whole? What's changing? What's staying the same? What do you notice about the size of the parts? Now I want you to pause the video and I want you to go through and do the same thing for the last 2 strips, except this third strip is going to be 4ths and the last strip is going to be 1/8. Pause the video, fold your paper, and label it. All right, now that you've paused your video and labeled it, here are the answers that you should have. You should have your 1/4ths here. You should have your 1/8ths here. So think to yourself, what of these have stayed the same and what have changed? Which fraction strip got more parts? What of the parts of the fraction strips got smaller? What stayed the same? Are there any parts that you could say are equal? Just ask yourself those questions, think those thoughts through. And we're going to use these as tools as we go through. So don't lose these, don't throw them away. These are really helpful tools as we look and think about our fractions. When we come together at the end of this lesson, I want people to be able to share what they notice about the size and the parts of the strips. I want you to be using words like numerator and denominator. So be thinking about those things as we progress through this lesson. So for your next activity, it's going to be in your packet. And you're going to see fraction bars, and they're going to be shaded. I want you to write what fraction the shaded part represents. Just the shaded part. So on these fraction strips, we wrote down each part of the entire whole. You're just going to write down what the shaded part represents. The next step of your worksheet is that you're going to have 4 blank diagrams and you're going to partition the diagrams. Partitioning in fractions literally means what we just did. We physically folded them. When you have it on a piece of paper, you're going to literally draw lines on it. So when you partition something, it says, here are 4 blank diagrams. Each diagram is 1. Partition each diagram and shade one part so the shaded part represents the given fraction. So if I wanted to partition this into 6, that's your first one, I need to make sure that I have 6 parts of this fraction. You need to make sure that you're counting the parts. This is 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts, 5 parts, and then I don't actually need another line because that's 6 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is what it means to partition a fraction. So as you go through your student packet, you want to be thinking about the sizes of your fractions. What is the numerator? What is the denominator? And I want you to be thinking too, all of these numerators in our fractions so far have a 1 in them. 1/10, 1/2, 1/6, 1/8. All of these numerators have 1s in them. These are called unit fractions. A unit fraction always has 1 in its denominator. So when you're going through these and you're thinking about if a question ever asks you, well, what's the unit fraction of that? You always want to remember that you're going to have a 1 in the denominator. So you're going to progress through your packet using those fraction strips if you need, remembering that partitioning literally just means cutting things in to different parts of your whole, and remembering what that unit fraction is. So today our goal was to refresh our memory about fractions. We used fraction strips and diagrams to represent some familiar and new fractions. So when we come together, I want you to make sure that you understand what the denominator of a fraction represents. I want you to be able to tell what the fraction 1/5 tells us. All right, go through that packet and then we will check in at the end of class.